Our scripture this morning comes from John. It's the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 30. Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard Jesus is making and baptizing more disciples than John, although it was not Jesus himself, but his disciples who baptized, he left Judea and started back to Galilee. But he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a Samaritan city near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired out by his journey, was sitting by the well. It was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask me for a drink, a woman of Samaria?" Jews do not share things in common with the Samaritans. But Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well, and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?" Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I give will become in them a spring of water, gushing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come back." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you say that the place where people must worship is in Jerusalem." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither here on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and is now here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father seeks such as these to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will proclaim all things to us." Jesus said to her, "I am he, the one who is speaking to you." Just then Jesus' disciples came. They were astonished that he was speaking with a woman. But no one said, "What are you doing? What do you want? Why are you speaking with her?" Then the woman left her water jar and went back to the city. She said to the people, "Come and see a man who told me everything I have ever done. He cannot be the Messiah, can he?" They left the city and were on their way to him. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So I imagine for some of you, especially those who are in the millennial generation, and just on the edges, you get the reference of my sermon title. It's a quote from the 2005 movie Mean Girls. Oh, just wait. Yes. So this movie is about a high school group of girls and the inner workings of their group's social dynamics. I'm going to give you a very brief rundown of the highlights, and I'm also going to make a disclaimer. This is not an endorsement for this to be your next family movie night. Okay? All right. So Katie, who's a junior in high school, starts attending a public school after spending her childhood being homeschooled. On her first day, she attempts to make friends, but at each turn, she is excluded. And so at lunchtime, she has no one to sit with and winds up in the bathroom stall eating her lunch alone. On the second day, she's befriended by some people who are going to call the art geeks. Now, the art geeks give her a guide to the cliques of the high school, describing each of these groups at their most basic level: the varsity jocks, the band geeks, the coolest people you'll ever meet, which are, of course, the art geeks, and the worst people you can ever meet, a group popular girls called the Plastics. Somehow, Katie ends up at a lunch table with the Plastics, a group of girls who are rich, popular, and manipulative. They're called the Plastics as a reference to the Barbie-like lives they live, and also a reference to the fake personas they exude. Katie ends up helping her art geek friends exact some middle school revenge on the Plastics, particularly the Queen Bee. She ends up being cut off from the popular group. She loses her boyfriend, loses control over her followers, and is generally humiliated by Katie and the art geek friends. But in the process of exacting revenge, Katie abandons her real friends. She abandons them in her selfish pursuit of the Queen Bee's ex-boyfriend. After the Queen Bee realizes she's on the outs, she decides to seek revenge by distributing a book filled with rumors and awful things about each of the junior girls. But she blames Katie and the other girls. The principal makes them come together for an assembly and atone for the awful things that they've said about one another. So one by one, the girls apologize. They confess their sins. And as an act of public confession and forgiveness, they participate in a trust fall after they confess. At one point, a girl gets up to share, and she says this: "I wish we could all get along like we did in middle school. I wish I could make a cake made out of rainbows and smiles, and we'd all eat it and be happy." Now someone from the back of the crowd yells, "She doesn't even go here!" Now the girl admits that in fact she does not go here. She just has a lot of feelings and wanted to share them. And so they tell her to leave. She does not belong. Her atonement is unwanted. Her presence is an annoyance. Now, it's a moment of comic relief, yes, but it too is a reminder of what it means to be part of the group and to be an outcast. Even though she has a desire to be a part of the group and to share her feelings with them, because she isn't one of them, no one cares. Her vulnerability isn't appreciated. It's almost offensive. Now, obviously, there's a bit more to this movie, but what's most important is that each group has clear boundaries. All others are ostracized. There is no crossover between the groups, and membership in a group secures your safety and ensures a community of support and creates for all others a clear identity of who you are. The ultimate goal is to belong. This is illustrated clearly at the end of the movie when Katie has burned all of her bridges and finds herself once again eating lunch alone in the bathroom stall. Isolated, unwanted, vulnerable, and exposed. But no one wants to be her friend anymore. So why bring up this 2005 high school drama? Well, you see, we too are people of cliques and groups. We too are people who segregate ourselves off from one another. We label ourselves, and we label other people, usually at their most basic level: conservative or liberal, man or woman, LSU or some other school, Methodist or Catholic, married or single, black or white, straight or gay. We label ourselves so that everyone can know clearly who we are, and so we can more easily find people who are like us. We are people who thrive on community, people who need community, people who crave a sense of belonging. And yet, even though this is our most instinctual need, we don't always welcome other people in. They are them, and we are us. We create a narrative about the people who are not us. We speak rumors and perpetuate and participate in stereotypes. We make other people an it instead of a person. We create these arbitrary distinctions and comparisons that prevent us from opening up, that prevent us from taking risks, that prevent us from letting new people come in. The people of the ancient Near East, too, were no strangers to the human tendency to form groups. We have names for their cliques: the Jews, the Levites, the Pharisees, the Romans, the poor, the widowed, the orphaned, the disciples, the Sadducees, the Samaritans. We also have more cliques in the Old Testament. There were the Egyptians and the Canaanites, the prophets of Baal, the Philistines, the pagans, the Israelites. Where you were from mattered too. Do you remember what they said about Jesus? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? He's from Galilee. Now, part of this fear of Jesus was that he didn't do what was expected of him. He was a a carpenter who also knew the scriptures. He preached to crowds. He ate with undesirable people. He called fishermen to be his disciples. He spoke with the sick. He healed. He told the little children to come to him. He didn't do what was expected. He didn't affiliate with one group. He welcomed everyone from the lepers to the least of these. He welcomed women and he made space for shepherds. The story about the woman at the well is another story of Jesus rejecting the group's societal forms. Another story of Jesus saying, your rules don't matter. Now, Jesus could have gone into the city with his disciples to find food, but instead he stayed on the outskirts of town. And so he sits at Jacob's well to rest. And a woman comes to draw water. And Jesus speaks to her. He speaks to this woman he doesn't know, even going so far as to ask her for a drink of water. A rabbi speaking to an unfamiliar woman in and of itself is a taboo. But here he is asking a Samaritan woman for a drink of water. She is not a Jew. She has not been in with society's expectations of what women do. She's been married 5 times and is living with someone who is not her husband. She is aware of her status. She is unwelcomed by society. It's so clearly illustrated by the time she chooses to come to the well, the middle of the day when it's hot, alone. Most of the other women would come early in the morning. It was an opportunity for them to be together, to create community. And so the woman's taken aback, unexpectedly finding someone who asks something of her. And she says, you're a Jew, and you're asking me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink of water? Think about her circumstances. She is other in every way, isolated. It's likely that most people in her town had an opinion about who this woman was and what she did, and whether or not she was welcome. Everyone seems to think that they know who she is, and how to treat people like that. They disagreed about where to worship. The Samaritans believed that they should worship on this mountain, and the Jews believed they should worship in Jerusalem. But it doesn't matter. Jesus says, it's not important. Jesus associates with this woman who respected people would never be caught near. She has no community, no sense of belonging in the city, but Jesus doesn't care. Jesus doesn't care about what this woman has done. Jesus doesn't care about her transgressions and her shortcomings. Jesus wants to offer her a new life. He can give her living water, water that will forever quench her thirst. This woman is forgettable. The gospel writer doesn't even give her a name. A name would humanize her. A name would make her real. A name would stir empathy and compassion. But Jesus knows exactly who she is. You see, we do that to other people too. We label them so we don't have to know their names. We label them so we don't have to know who they are, so we don't have to know their struggles. So the disciples discover Jesus sitting and talking with her, and they are horrified at what they're doing. So horrified that they're speechless. They knew who she was, and they were probably not thrilled that Jesus was doing another unacceptable thing. After all, this woman is unclean and unwanted, undesirable. The disciples are essentially telling Jesus, she doesn't even go here. Jesus, this woman is not one of us. Jesus, this woman is unclean. Jesus, this woman is not worthy of you or your time. This woman doesn't even go here. Her feelings and questions are not of importance to us. She doesn't even go here. Like Katie, she is cut off from the groups that might offer her safety. And so she goes alone to fetch the water, trying not to overstep her boundaries. But Jesus doesn't care. Jesus rejects those arbitrary boundaries that have been created by the society. And he invites this woman to be part of this group, offers her a place where her needs can be met. Not just her physical needs, but her spiritual and emotional needs. Jesus gives her a place of belonging. He gives her a new start, He treats her like a human being. He claims her as a child of God. Jesus gives her a new identity, an identity that spurs her to share the good news with others. Jesus, by his actions, tells us that this woman's identity is not bound in her choices or in her past. Her identity is not bound by her marital status or her social location. He is telling her by his actions that she is worthy of community, worthy of love, worthy because she too is created in the image of God. She too is filled with possibility. This woman is thirsty for more than water at the well. She desires community and relationships. She longs for the living water that Jesus offers. And we too spend a lot of time looking for living water. We look for places where we might draw renewing water, where we might be restored, or we might be redeemed and made new. We search out what can give us contentment, fulfillment. We look for purpose and meaning. We search out communities that will welcome us in without hesitation or judgment. We search out a place where we can live and be loved, a place where we feel needed and satisfied. The woman at the well didn't belong. She didn't follow the rules. She doesn't even go here. But neither did Jesus. Jesus didn't fit into the right categories. Jesus didn't care about social norms, and he certainly didn't care about a person's past, because Jesus invites each and every one of us into a life lived in grace. Jesus saw her for who she was, a woman searching for restoration and healing, a woman who is isolated, and so he gave her the opportunity to be part of something more. She is transformed by this interaction, by this conversation, by this invitation and not condemnation. It's about who she can become, who she is through this transformative invitation. The gospel, the good news, it changes everything for her. She returns to the town not as the woman she was when she left, but as a woman made new, eager to invite others to hear the good news of Jesus Christ. She went from being an outcast and an outsider to one who calls others into a life lived in Christ. She becomes an evangelist, calling all who would listen to come and drink from the living water. She was not who she was, but has a new identity. She is now one who will be through the grace of Jesus. And we all know someone who's a woman at the well. Someone who feels cast out, isolated, judged, broken. And I imagine that all of us, whether we're willing to admit it or not, have people that we would rather avoid. People we leave on the outskirts. People that we don't want to let into our community. I imagine that we all have people who we judged long before we ever spoke to them. People whose names we didn't learn because we didn't care. We tell all sorts of people that they don't even go here. When people come in looking for help, the temptation is to say, they don't even go here. The temptation is to make an excuse for why we can't do that. We find their request offensive. They're just looking for a handout. They don't want to be a part of this community. At times, our church tells people who aren't straight that they don't even go here. It makes spaces uncomfortable, unwelcoming, and unwilling to accept differences. At times, our church tells people of color, you don't even go here. Your experiences are not valid. They're not like ours. We pretend that there's not a difference between us. We pretend and invalidate. There's no way that it can really be like that. At times, we tell people who have physical limitations, you don't even go here. Our bathrooms aren't accessible. It's difficult to move from one space to another. There's no elevator to go upstairs. You don't even go here. At times, we tell women, you don't even go here. You're not worthy of an equal wage. You're not worthy of an equal voice. You're not worthy of having control over your own body. It's just the way the world is. You don't even go here. Sometimes we tell little children, you don't even go here. We shush chattering toddlers in worship. We give side eyes to parents who have the audacity to bring their children into worship. worship. We tell people who don't fit into our expectations that they don't even go here. We tell them by our actions, whether or not we reach out and invite them in, whether we make room for them to sit at the table with us. There are all sorts of others that we do not invite in because they are not like us. They have a different story, or we don't deem them worthy of belonging. We keep them on the outskirts, the edges of society. We withhold our help for those who help themselves. We keep people for some arbitrary reason on the edges, not letting them in because our fear of what is different overcomes our faith in God's grace. What would others think if we really proclaimed the good news? But you see, the church's mission is to make disciples of all nations for the transformation of the world. This is the call of Jesus. Jesus tells us to drink of the living water. Jesus tells us it doesn't matter where we worship God. Jesus tells us that we must worship in spirit and in truth. And the truth is that Jesus came for all people, in all places, and in all times. Jesus came so that we might never thirst again. Jesus came so that we might be made new. Jesus came so that we could welcome all people in. Jesus came to tell us that all are forgiven. All are invited to be a part of the body of Christ. We are people called to welcome the stranger, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to visit the sick and the imprisoned. But we live in a society that tries to exploit our differences, because anything not like us is different. Different is bad. They are wrong and we are right. They don't know any better, but we do. They do this, but we do that. Jesus was all about the different. He called Matthew a tax collector. He called Simon and Andrew to drop their nets and follow him. He spent time with little children. He ate with women. He touched the sick and the unclean. Jesus doesn't care who you are. Jesus doesn't care who you are because Jesus sees you for who you are, a child of God. And Jesus knows that there is grace enough to welcome you into the family of God. And so I wonder, are we being intentional like Jesus? Intentional in seeking out people who are different from us? Listening and not dismissing experiences that are not like our own? Are we being like Jesus and going to the edges of society? Going to the edges of society so that we might meet people where they are? Are we being like Jesus and seeing past the world, seeing past what other people label us as, and instead see a child of God? Are we being like Jesus and truly making a space for all people to be welcome in our community? Jesus offers us living water, water that transforms, water that washes away the burdens we carry, water that quenches the thirst of our souls. When we drink of the living water, we are invited into community, into the family of God. We are transformed from seekers into servants. The living water has no end. It flows freely, like God's grace nourishing and restoring and cleansing us. Do you want to drink of the living water? Do you want to be made new? Do you want to be a part of God's holy church, part of the body of Christ? Do you want to belong? The good news is that you do belong here. All people are welcome. The challenge is that we must be that for the world around us, a place where all people are welcome, a place where we can call all of God's children home, a place that does not judge based on our differences, but sees the same breath of life that God gives to us in each other. Will you pray with me? God of living water, we confess the dryness of our lives, the brittle words that we have thought and spoken, the relationships that are crumbling, the arid perspective that centers on self, the cracked and jagged edges of our world. Hear our confession, O Christ, and rain down your mercy upon us. Restore us, cleanse us from our judgments, open us up to see all people as your children. Give us your living water, so we might never thirst again, so we might be transformed, so we might tell the good news to all people.